Good evening everyone, Ragewood here, back with another Godforge video. It's Friday, but there are no Friday reveals, that's right. As we're coming down to the Christmas period, the Fateless team are going to take some time off, etc. As they should, as everyone should this time of year. But I'm still keen to try and keep some sort of regular routine going. So in this video, I've done something that we've done previously in one of our sort of CC challenges, and I'm going to talk about some gods that I feel should be in a particular faction. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, with Fateless putting a particular focus on the Kojiki faction recently, both in what we've seen from campaign levels and in the most recent Fateless video showing us some more Kojiki characters coming to the game, I thought that's where I would focus today's video. Now, I do fully expect Kojiki to be the fifth faction in the testing that we might be privileged enough to take part in the early part of next year. We've been told there's going to be 5 factions available with about 100 characters, and I think it's obvious that Avalon, Olympus, Asgard, and the Aru are the first 4 because they're the most fleshed out from what we've seen so far. And then I do believe lastly is going to be Kojiki, as mentioned earlier. So here are some gods that I think we will see in the game, or that I would like to see. Now, the first 5 are very obvious ones that should be candidates. However, we do know that, for example, Poseidon is not going to be part of the original Olympus launch, so there is the possibility that some of these might not be at launch around September, October next year, approximately. But I do think they will come into the game at some point. So, we're going to start off with Amaterasu. Now, Amaterasu is the goddess of the sun and one of sort of the 3 sort of children of Izanagi and Izanami, who were the creator deities. So, as mentioned, she was the goddess of the sun. She was also seen as sort of the ruler of the heavens, as well as the imperial house of Japan. And she was considered almost like the Zeus of Japanese mythology. There are lots of stories she is in the original Kojiki text, and what was the other one? The Nihon Shoki. Now, her existence comes from, it's quite complicated, but essentially Izanagi and Izanami were the 2 creator deities. Izanami, I think, is the female. She unfortunately went to the underworld. Izanagi went down to go rescue her, but she had already eaten the forbidden fruit and then sort of chased him out. And as a result, he went to go sort of cleanse himself in some holy waters, and then Amaterasu was born when he washed his left eye. There we are. Tsukuyomi, who was the god of the moon, was born when he washed his right eye, and then Susanoo was when he washed his nose. At that point, Izanagi appointed her as the ruler of heaven. Now, some other stories to do with her and her brothers. Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi, sun and moon god. Essentially, Tsukuyomi went down, slayed one of Amaterasu's fellow goddesses. She took offence to that, surprisingly. And then they sort of vowed never to cross paths again, separating night from day. There was another story to do with Susanoo as well. It was like the god of the sea, to do with spitting seeds to prove that he could live in the heavens. And then when he was up there, he was just causing mayhem and chaos. So she hid in a cave, which then caused the sun to disappear. And yeah, there's a whole thing on it. But she is one of the sort of better known goddesses from sort of Shinto traditions. And I do believe that she should be in the game, if not at launch, at some point. The next god on our list is Susanoo, who was, as we've mentioned, Amaterasu's brother, youngest brother, and was the god of the sea, storms, and the fields. Now, he didn't like the fact that he was given sort of the sea. He sort of took offence to that and sort of became a bit of a trickster god. Now, as you can see here, he is shown with sort of two sides, if you will. He's sort of either told as a wild, impetuous god associated with the seas and the storm, or a historic figure. He did kill a monstrous serpent. Now, as mentioned, there is a story of him trying to get up to heaven, and he was like chewing up Amaterasu's beads and spitting out gods, and Amaterasu like chewed his sword and spit out goddesses. They claimed each one was each other's, but Amaterasu, I think, believed that he had good intentions, so let him into heaven. And then when he went in there, he proceeded to wreak havoc by destroying his sister's rice fields, defecating at her palace, and flaying the heavenly piebald horse, which he then hurled at Amaterasu's loom, killing one of her weaving maidens. He seems like a nice person, doesn't he? And I've just found the story about that goddess that he slayed. Was Susanoo asked the goddess for food to give him something to eat. Upon finding out the goddess produced foodstuffs from her mouth, nose, and rectum. Not sure I'd be too keen on eating that. He killed her. In which case, various plants, crops, and seeds sprang from her body. I mean, I think killing's a bit extreme, but it's certainly not nice. So that's a little bit about Susanoo, say one of the three main children gods, if you will. Something we didn't talk about, I suppose. Amaterasu, as being the goddess of the sun. It'd be cool if she had some sort of blind in her kit. Something that would be cool. You know, blinding people with sunlight. I think it'd say be a cool thing to do. I imagine she would be perhaps a brawler or a defender, like defending the heavens. I think is a nice sort of depiction. Now, when it comes to Susanoo, in a lot of sort of different stories as well, he's seen to have killed a few different figures, as well as a goddess. So you would imagine he would be a slayer if he was in the game. Abilities wise, against sea, storms, thunderclaps, tidal waves, typhoons, that kind of vibe is what I'm getting, and I think it'd be really cool to see some of the animations on that as well. So that is Susanoo, and to say the second god that I think should be in the Kojiki faction, either at launch or thereafter. So the third god we are looking at is Tsukuyomi. Again, the last of the three children. Now, Tsukuyomi is interesting in that they were, I guess, gender fluid is probably a good way to put it. There's so little known about him that even their sex is generally unknown. However, they were known as Tsukuyomi Otoko, which stands for moon reading man, so that it implies that he's male, but that's not a definite, which I thought was an interesting thing to look at. Interestingly as well, he also killed someone Amaterasu knew. Tsukuyomi angered Amaterasu when he killed Ukamochi, Megami of food. Amaterasu sent Tsukuyomi to represent her at a feast. She created food by turning to the ocean and spitting out a fish, facing the forest and spitting out game, and then turning to a rice paddy and cupping up a bowl of rice. And then he killed her. Now, I don't know about you, there is two similarities there. Firstly, both of Amaterasu's brothers, like killing people for disgusting food. But also, just coughing food up? Really? Is this the second person that does that? I haven't got this in sort of the view I'm going to look at. But I feel like maybe we should have some sort of uncommon character who coughs up food. Like, their ability could be coughing up some sort of food and putting like a continuous heal on the ally parties because they're fed and watered, but maybe a small continuous heal because it's like rectum food or coughed up like a bird. I think that would be cool. Make it happen. Anyway, after that whole murdering of friends, Amaterasu vowed never to sort of look upon him or be in the same area, which then causes sort of night and day. Outside of that, there actually isn't too much more left on this particular person. I say it's sort of how little is known. Again, ability-wise, class, things like that. It's a tough one. I think maybe again like a brawler, slayer, something like that. Because clearly, excuse me, he likes killing people, or they like killing people, I suppose is a better way to put it. Maybe some sort of darkness, maybe a veil. There you go, hiding under the cover of darkness, having some sort of invisibility. We have seen that as something already in Godforge, so maybe he has invisibility, hiding under the cover of night. Maybe he has like shurikens, which are stars. So that's like his abilities, like or comets. Something that you would see in the night sky. You imagine something like that. I think would be pretty cool. And yes, Tsukuyomi is the third god that I think should be part of the Kojiki faction. So next we've got the first of one of the two created deities in Izanagi. Izanagi is the father to the three sort of noble children that we've seen. Now, I guess it should be said, I think there is the possibility we might have already seen one of the two brother gods or Izanagi in a recent post or in a video showing some 2D art concept of a really fleshed out samurai. So there is the potential to say that one of them is already in the game. But say Izanagi, I think, should be there as well. We've already got Pangu, who was a creator deity in Chinese mythos. So Izanagi, I don't see why he shouldn't also be there. And the story goes that Izanagi and Izanami were set the divine task to sort of create the world, I suppose. At which point the earth was just like floating oil, a little bit like a jellyfish. So they used a spear to turn it around. Then they pulled it up, the drips fell down, congealed, and created the first island. They then performed this weird ritual where they went around a pillar, fornicated, and then sort of some of the other islands and things appeared thereafter. Unfortunately, not long after that, Izanami was badly injured and eventually died after giving birth to Katotsuki, who was a fire god. And in that to grief and rage, Izanagi killed him, and obviously Izanami then went into, I think they call it Yomi, which is essentially the underworld. So Izanagi goes down into the underworld to try and convince his now dead wife to return. She mentions that she's already eaten the fruit and so can't. And then Izanagi, lost his patience, struck up a fire to look upon his wife, at which point he found that she was a rotting corpse. Not ideal. To avenge her shame, Izanami dispatches the Gods of Thunder, known as the Yakusano Ikazuki. There was 8 of them, 8 kamis of thunder, or gods of thunder. The hags of the Yomi and a horde of warriors chase after him. He distracted them by, throwing a vine, securing his hair and comb on his right knot, which turned into grapes and bamboo shots, which the hags devoured. And then, upon reaching the pass, he took 3 peaches from a nearby tree and then threw them at them. And the other chasers, I think it's just a resourceful man, I think, definitely. At which point, Izanami chases after him, and he secures the entrance to the underworld with a boulder. And that was that, really. See, a bit of a sort of a morbid sort of end to the relationship. Clearly things were quite toxic, and they probably should have got some counselling before things escalated to there. But, who am I to judge? Now, ability-wise for Izanagi, just from reading that, I think he should be a greengrocer. Clear to say, very resourceful, making shots and throwing peaches. So maybe some sort of confusion effect, because people wonder why he's feeding them. Just an idea. A defender of the fruit and the pantry. Yeah, you say another very well-known deity or kami, and again one that I think should definitely be in Godforge. The next one then is Izanami, the wife to Izanagi, the one who did unfortunately pass and then moved down into the underworld. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the story because it is very similar to what I've just said, just flipped, obviously. But I think what is pretty cool here is we saw on Rio, Onryo, whichever one it was, from a recent sort of leak, both in the Fateless video and the 50,000 subscribers sort of leak, if you will. And she is a rare character, but there is the possibility for it to sort of shift that up to legendary. And I think Izanami sort of fits that bill quite nicely. Now, whether they put her as sort of filled with maggots and rotting flesh, how sort of in depth they go with that, I don't know. But you can definitely put her in that kimono and have that sort of bad spirit vibe. I think this would fit that quite nicely and would suit the character sort of very well. And between us, say those, this being the fifth one, at least first five that we've looked at, I think it just makes sense that, they don't all have to be legendary characters, sure, but I do think that the first five should definitely be in the game at some point. Now, the next three, though, are just kind of a bit fun, and yeah, I don't think are necessarily dead certs compared to these first five. So the first one I'm going to look at is Danzaburou. He was a tanuki, and for those of you who don't know what tanuki are, they're Japanese raccoon dogs. We're all for diversity. What about having a raccoon dog? Doesn't get more diverse than that. Anyway, he was the leader of the Tanuki on Sado Island, and he was known for sort of his mischief, I suppose is a nice way to put it. Sort of creating wall structures to block people's paths, fooling them with the mirage, sold leaves from trees by making them look like as if they were gold, and would lure people into his lair. Yeah, I just think this is a cool legend, if you will. He's definitely not a god. Myth and legend, I think this falls under. I just think it's very cool. I like the way that he is portrayed, but it's a raccoon dog. Like, I think that is the key point I want to get in. This guy needs to be in because look at it. Look at that. Like, how do you not want those in the game? That'd be so cool. Give him, like, I don't know, some, like, pointy teeth down here. Maybe, I don't know, a sword coming out here and a hat. Like, yeah, I just think he has to be in the game. Danzaburou, I would love to see in the game. I've only seen him in one other game, which is where I got the idea from, which is, of course, Smite. But I've never actually looked into the lore until today, even though I knew he existed. And yeah, I just read it. I was like, it's so cool. He's got to be in there. So yeah, my number 6 is Danzaburou. Please get him into the game. The next one on our list today is Raijin. He is the god of thunder, storms, similar to Susanoo, I guess. But he's not one of the major three, obviously. Now, this guy is often depicted with Fujin, who is god of the wind. I'm not going to be looking at Fujin today. I think the cool thing about this guy is he is often shown with dido drums, which I guess sort of like he bangs to make thunder. That's sort of the idea, I guess, the thunderclap. And I'd like to see this guy in it more from just like an art sort of style point of view. So he's often pictured with a frightening face and muscular figure. Now we know that they've got the sort of the shredded sort of heroic body type, so they've already sort of got that bit sorted. But I'd be interested just to see what they do, say, with sort of his abilities and the dido drums. I think that would just be really cool. I suppose one thing we didn't talk about is Izanagi, the undead wife. She's obviously going to be a disruptor, sowing fear, causing chaos. I think that's just a given. Now, I think he could also be a disruptor as well. with like stuns, lightning strikes, stunning, maybe that's just me. Claps of thunder, lightning, maybe could also blind, I suppose. For me, I'd like to see this particular one in just because I'd love to see how they present it. I think it'd be really cool. If we look at sort of mythology and stories, Raijin's sort of birth is one of the Thunder Kami that Izanami sent to chase after Izanagi, essentially. Another story depicts sort of a god catcher to grab him. He asks him nicely, obviously the god says no, so then he goes and talks to someone else, and he sort of gets him to turn himself in. And also in one legend, Raijin is shown to defend Japan against the invading Mongols. That's pretty cool as well. So, not all bad. But yeah, a cool person that I would like to see in the game under the Kojiki faction. The last one that I think would be cool to see is Ryujin. Now, Ryujin is another god of sort of the sea, but he is a dragon. He is a Japanese dragon who had the ability to shapeshift into human form. He is generally considered a good god and a patron of Japan, and in one story he sank the Mongolian flotilla sent by someone to invade them. His palace under the sea built out of red and white coral, where he controlled the tides with magical tide jewels. Sea turtles, fish, jellyfish, snakes, and other sea creatures are often seen as Ryujin's servant. Now, again, there isn't anything particularly cool. I'm like, oh wow, this story is amazing. But again, more so from an artistic style that I'd like to see what they do. Whether they would have him in a human pose traditionally and his abilities make him into a dragon, or whether they style him as a dragon similar to maybe Zulong or Yidre Gok. We don't have that sort of water dragon yet that we know of. So I think he would be another cool one to just have in the game. Now, how I would style him is similar to a Magic the Gathering card, which I will pull up now. So there is a card by the name of Murktide Regent. Now, it doesn't really matter for the case of this video what it does. It's a pretty good card though. But as you can see, he is sort of like a water dragon. Now, when I went to MagicCon Vegas, there was a special edition version of this card, which I actually got on a playmat, which was done by an artist that I sort of know through someone. Someone I know is friends with them, and I thought that was really cool. But anyway, this is wicked. I loved this art. I think Ryujin could be styled maybe something similar to this sort of like water dragon-y style. I think that would be really, really cool to see. Be this, if they could style it like that, that would be so cool. Quick story-wise, this I thought was interesting. Ryujin was the father of the beautiful that person who married the Hunter Prince Hori. The first Emperor of Japan, Emperor of Jimmu, is said to have been the grandson of this courtship, and therefore Ryujin is said to be one of the ancestors of the Japanese imperial dynasty. I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, there's just some art references there. So there you go. That is the last Kojiki god, or Shinto god, I suppose, that I would like to see in the Kojiki faction. And that is where we are going to end it today. So let me know your thoughts down below. Which gods do you think should be part of the Kojiki faction? Myths or legends? Danzaburo definitely should be on your list. Moving forward, I don't know how many videos we're going to get over the festive period at the time of recording. So hopefully I can still keep some sort of relatively good flow for you, get a couple of videos out, reactions, that kind of thing. But it might slow down, and if it does, apologies, but I will still keep posting up on the website. I don't have much time off over the festive period just because of the job I do, but I will do my best to at least get something up every couple of days, even if it's not always a YouTube video. So, with that in mind, take care, look after yourselves, work hard, but as always, play harder, and I'll see you in another one soon. Cheers.